It's peach day. Again.
25 pounds of peaches is no joke, you guys.
I'm kind of done with peaches.
So you don't want me to make peach cobbler?
No, we should have cobbler. So today we're actually gonna make two so-called cobblers. And I use air quotes because there's a lot of different things that people call cobblers colloquially, but in reality they're different things. Like some are actually cobblers, and then there's crisps and buckles and snaps, crackles, pops,
Slump.
all the different Rice Krispie treat sounds. And that really goes to show why you'll end up having cobbler from different people that may just be wildly different, and some you might like and some you might not like as much. So today we're actually gonna make two, and let's take a look at those differences.
Today we'll make one very traditional cobbler, and then we'll make one that's less traditional that's actually called a buckle.
We had to look that up.
It's true, but it's my favorite. All of these desserts are baked fruit desserts, but a cobbler technically has a fruit layer on the bottom and is topped with some sort of biscuit dough on top. Though some people do use actual biscuits on top, usually it's just some sort of dough that's made using the biscuit method, that is using cold butter mixed in with the flour. We're gonna start with the less traditional cobbler. It's more like a buckle, but today we're cooking it in a skillet. I've got a skillet preheating in the oven at 350. What fruit should we use in this? We're gonna use peaches today. It's actually a simpler recipe than the more traditional cobbler, so we're gonna start here.
Let's get our stuff.
Let's do it.
So we have a lot of peaches. The first step here is to cut them.
We're gonna cut them into bite-sized pieces. I'm leaving the peels on, but if you prefer your peaches to not have peels in a cobbler, you could use the blanching method and peel as many as you like.
Or you could just manually peel them by hand.
That would take a long time.
Okay, don't do that.
These peaches are extraordinarily ripe. This is the last day we have to work with peaches. These are clean stone peaches, meaning that the stones do not just fall out if you have them. So I cut around the stone to remove it.
So it's kind of like an apple.
It is more like an apple. It's got a core that you can't really easily get rid of. Again, just bite-sized pieces, very soft peaches.
And inside a cobbler or a buckle, kind of soft peaches is not
No big deal.
a problem.
Yeah, we're baking them down to very soft anyway.
We gotta fill this entire bowl.
We have to fill that bowl, yes. We're looking for at least 2.5 cups of fruit. The recipe from the Peach Truck cookbook actually calls for just 1.5 cups of peaches and an additional cup of blueberries, but I have decided to make this all peach because we've got plenty of those. Oh, I like to cook like this.
Getting you prepped for cobbler. We're getting pretty close.
We are. I didn't count how many peaches we used, but
Still got a whole bowl full.
don't worry about these. We've been nibbling all the extra good peachiness off of the pit before we get rid of them.
Don't worry about these because they're someone else's peach pits and it's weird to worry about that kind of stuff.
That's enough peaches for this buckle, cobbler, what have you. Let's get the dry ingredients out, some milk and lemon, and we'll move forward with this buckle.
All right, we have a lot of ingredients.
This is where you can help.
Great.
I want you to measure 135 grams of flour into this bowl. You can do it.
Okay.
135 grams is about 1 cup, just about 2 full scoops of that.
All right, you're welcome.
How about you get a spoon and we'll measure 200 grams of sugar. 200 grams, or go ahead and zero the scale.
No idea how much 200 grams of sugar is.
It's about 1 cup. That'll do.
You sure? There we go.
Okay. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder.
Weird how you didn't let me do that one. After that high quality thing we saw with the sugar, I could have sworn.
We'll need this sugar again for the topping in a little bit. And just 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now, whisk that together, please.
Okay.
Good. We can set that aside and we're done with the scale for now. I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of vanilla to our milk. This is 1 cup of whole milk.
It was a heaping teaspoon of vanilla.
It was. And then I'm going to add about 1 teaspoon of lemon zest. I'm just gonna eyeball that. This is not a chemical ingredient, it's just a flavorful ingredient. And from there, I'll also add 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. I'm also gonna eyeball this. I'm gonna use my hand to catch any seeds that might fall out. Now, if you add lemon juice to milk, it kind of curdles the milk. It adds an acid component. It's a substitute for buttermilk. In this case, the recipe actually calls for lemon juice and not buttermilk. Buttermilk does have a different cultured flavor than lemon juice and milk, but they have a similar chemical balance so that you can use it for raising dough.
Don't touch your eyes.
Yes, I need to wash my hands. Before I mix the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients, I'm going to add a stick of butter to the hot pan in the oven to let it melt.
So you're just dropping a stick of butter in. This is the butter layer.
While the butter is melting in the cast iron skillet in the oven, I'm going to combine the wet ingredients and the dry ingredients. When that butter is melted and the pan comes out, we'll add this batter to the pan just as it is, and we will not stir the butter in. It will create a nice fat crispy layer on the outside. Some of the butter will pool on the top and the middle, and then we'll top with fruit and sugar. Want to stir just enough to mix the dry ingredients in, not enough to develop a lot of gluten and make our dessert tough. That's ready.
Oh wow, there's still a little chunk of butter in there. Ooh, that's popping.
There's a piece of butter in here. I'm just gonna stir it around a little bit to get it to melt. Now I'm going to pour all of this batter in. The butter has come up around the edges and over the top. The batter is already starting to cook around the edges of the pan. We will sprinkle the peaches on top of the batter. They will sink to the bottom and throughout as this cooks.
So it seems like once this thing comes out of the oven, you are on a time clock.
Yes, once the butter is melted and the batter is in, you need to work quickly to get the fruit on top. Notice it's already baking around the edges in that hot pan. We sprinkle 2 tablespoons of sugar across the top, and this goes back in the oven. We've got it in the oven for 50 minutes. Another great addition to this would be some cinnamon in those dry ingredients.
So while our buckle is in the oven, let's prep for our actual cobbler so we have something to compare it to.
Delicious. Now we're moving on to the cobbler in the more traditional sense of the word. We're gonna put a biscuit-style topping on the top of this one. We need a lot of peaches for this 9x13 pan. So we're looking for 8 to 10 cups of peaches chopped to bite-sized chunks.
8 to 10 cups. The first one only had like 2.5.
It's true. This is a lot of peaches, guys. It's good for Peach Week.
Is that like Shark Week?
Yes.
This is gonna be a lot of peaches, honey. I'll give you a little.
This was a lot of peaches to cut, but I've got about 9 cups of peaches here. I'm gonna put them in a large bowl so that I can add a little lemon juice, white sugar, brown sugar, arrowroot powder, cinnamon, and nutmeg. A little bit of lemon juice to keep them from turning brown. This is 50 grams of white sugar, 50 grams of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of arrowroot powder, or you could use cornstarch, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and just 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg.
How tossed are we talking here?
We want it to all be mixed in.
So I shouldn't see any of those.
You shouldn't see individual ingredients, no. And all the peaches should have some goodies on them.
Kind of making like a sludge.
Yes, the sugar, once the sugar reaches the peaches, they'll start to release some juices, so that's good. That's gonna make a nice sauce in our cobbler. Your method of stirring is funny.
Inefficient and terrible.
All right, now we're going to put this fruit in a 9x13 dish. I just want to get all the goodies from the bowl too, nothing left behind. Beautiful. Oh, it smells heavenly with that cinnamon. The peach chunks, colorful. May just need to taste one. This will go in the oven at 425 for 10 minutes to get the process of cooking started on the peaches before we add the dough. While it's baking, we'll start on the dough. For the dough topping of our peach cobbler, I'm using about 2 cups, that's 270 grams of all-purpose flour. I'll be using 2 teaspoons of baking powder. This is 100 grams of white sugar, 100 grams of brown sugar, and a 1/2 teaspoon kosher salt. I'm just going to mix this up as dry ingredients. And here I have a stick and a half, that's 12 tablespoons of cold butter. I'm going to cut this butter in with a pastry cutter. There are several ways you could do this. You could use a pastry cutter like this if you have it, or you could use a food processor. You could even grate this butter over your bowl and let the little strings of butter come in, but we want little chunks of butter cut into this flour mixture. I'm gonna do about half at a time.
Using the old kitchen brass knuckles.
And so this is cold butter. It's important that it's cold.
What method is this?
This is the biscuit method, cutting cold butter into flour and then adding some sort of liquid, sometimes water, sometimes milk, buttermilk. Another way you could do, if you don't have any of those tools, you could use your hands. And in fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. And so just start rubbing the butter between the flour because it's probably much faster. Your clean hands are a great kitchen tool. And we just want little flakes of butter in there, little maybe pea-sized pieces. Okay, we're getting there, so I'm going to add the last little bit of butter and start the process over. So I've got this crumbly butter with some small and large pieces of butter still whole inside the flour. That'll make a great crumb texture for our cobbler. So the peaches have come out of the oven. They smell delicious. I've got the butter cut into the flour here. The next step is to add 1/2 cup boiling water. Now with the butter cold like this, some of it will melt and some of it will stay in solid clumps, and that's what we want. And then we'll stir this up and make a thick dough. So we do still have some lumps of butter in there. It's excellent. You could use 2 spoons, or you could use a small scoop like this to just drop the batter on top of the peaches.
So when this cooks, are those balls, they're gonna like expand?
They'll spread a little bit, yes. And it'll have that cobbled texture on top.
Is this ready to go in the oven?
Just about, but I don't want to leave any of this good dough in the bowl. I'm going to make sure it's included on top.
Nice.
Now this cobbler will go in a 425-degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. Well, these smell fabulous.
Yep.
So this one definitely has a crispy top. The fruit is throughout the cobbler itself. This one, the dough is just resting on top, and there's plenty of sweetened fruit below. Let's take some out and take a look at the differences in texture. We'll start with this cobbler by name, but probably more like a buckle.
Very crispy edge.
Crispy edge, lots of fruit, and kind of cake-like.
Yeah.
And then this one will have a lot of fruit on the bottom. Let's see how this dough is on top.
Oh yeah, the amount of peaches is, I mean, obviously we knew going in based on the number of peaches that were prepared, but this
Right.
cobbler has a
Significantly more fruit to
Yes.
it. I'll cut into this dough to see what its texture is like. It's somewhat cake-like as well.
but it is still more biscuity.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what they look like in their general structure. Now we need a taste. Arguably the most important part, because I don't look at my desserts very long. I eat them.
Shall we start with the traditional cobbler?
Sure. We're so good at this.
The fruit's very sweet. The top is very biscuit-like. It's a sweet biscuit.
Yeah, it's just a sweet biscuit.
Sweet biscuit. It's actually very good. It's very good.
It's very good, but very peachy.
Yes, very peachy.
Significantly peachy.
Which is good for Peach Week.
All right, now the buckle. Oh man, that's good. That's good.
That's still my favorite.
Yeah.
You cannot go wrong with that.
No, yeah. This is like cake with some peach, and it's really good. I could see if you added cinnamon to this, it could be really good too.
It's delicious.
So it really depends. Your preference here between these two styles
Right.
will be if you want a very strong peach dessert that is very heavily fruity, and much more like eating peaches with a little bit of something extra, well then a cobbler
Absolutely, cobbler's the way
will
to go.
be that you want. But if you like cake and more on the bready side, and you want just that little extra, splash of peach to really amp something up, boy, buckle.
I cannot wait to get out the ice cream, have a little ice cream with these. I suppose we have to call the kids in and let them taste it too.
Right. So if you like this, hit subscribe, maybe make yourself a buckle, maybe a cobbler. Let us know in the comments below if you do. We'll see you next time.